Hey everyone, Steven here. Welcome to my channel. So, just like the last project we did, we've been commissioned to build a brand new trike for another client. Unlike the last one, which was a 1600 Beetle, this one will be a VFR800 engine. And unlike the last video, we will be doing a whole build series following the entire project. So I will be cataloging pretty much everything from the start of the project right to the end. So, here's the project that we have. Like I said, it's a VFR800 engine, and this project, like the last one, was started by other workshops and then ultimately ended up in my hands so that we can finish it. And like the last project, I will also be rebuilding the entire frame, as there are several things on this frame that I'm just not happy with. For starters, we have the neck, which is way too short and has been stamped, hand stamped on the other side, which in South Africa is extremely illegal. Secondly, the triple clamp does not fit with this neck, so I'm going to have to spend a lot of time in the engineering shop getting this to actually work together. So I have a different solution for this. We'll get to that in a second. The other thing with this engine is this engine, or with this whole project, is the engine is sitting way too high on this frame. And the rear axle on this is also too far forward. So we'll be needing to move the rear axle further out. And then the biggest issue on this entire project is the rear sprocket. So this rear sprocket and this rear sprocket's teeth more or less lines up around about here. So if you look up at where that needs to sit, that lines up there. We need that to line up here. So this more or less lines up with this plate here. So we'll need to move the wheels out by approximately 50 mil. So we'll be moving this one out and this one out the opposite way. So we'll be moving them backwards, we'll be moving them further out, which will correct the proportions on this trike, because if all the proportions on this thing is completely wrong, starting with the neck's in the wrong position, the rear wheels are in the wrong position, so we'll just be fixing all of that with a brand new frame. So for the neck, my fix for the neck is this here. This is a NC750 frame. This was written off in a crash. The front forks were snapped, but the actual frame itself and the triple clamp is good enough. So this frame, what we'll do is we are going to take this neck and only this neck as a base to start this entire project off, because we've got the neck and we've got the triple clamp. So both of these actually go together, so we don't really have to worry about making things work. We'll be using this for the new forks that we'll be building. We did receive a set of forks with this, but we won't be using them, as the client has requested a Road Warrior trike build. So the Road Warrior trikes have got Springer forks, so we'll be building a set of Springers for this project. One of my dogs came to say hello. So we'll be building a brand new set of Springers, brand new frame, and we'll have to do all of this before we move. So I'm moving shop in a couple of weeks, moving to different location, need a lot more space. So the goal is to try and get the frame and the rolling chassis done before we actually moving shop. It'll just be a hell of a lot easier to get this thing to the new location when it's on wheels. Okay, so basically what we have here, I took a photo of the trike and I pulled the image into AutoCAD, and what I've done was I've basically just outlined the entire engine just so that I can get the correct proportions of where I want everything to sit. Then I drew the new lines for the entire frame, and just to get a bit of a better idea of where I wanted the neck to sit in correlation to this, and where I wanted the frame to actually sit. So pulled it all over here, got a center line for that, and then I drew it into 3D. So that's what we have here. So this is basically what we are going to be starting off with as a design for the new trike. Okay, so these guys are off. Now that is all that is left to do is to get these. Ideally want this, but I think for now we'll just cut it off there and we'll cut it off here so that we can get this whole thing out, which then we can proceed to cut the plates out of the rest of the frame. So let's get that going. Okay, so here we have it. We have something to finally work with. So this tube here basically indicates the perfect center line between those two plates. So this tube will determine where the neck will sit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure from there to where I want the front of the neck to be, or the inside of the neck to be rather. In other words, this part of the neck. So I'm going to measure from here to, well, from here rather, to where I want the inside of the neck to be. And then I'm going to use a 15mm round tubing to position where the neck is actually going to be. Then, so that'll be the dummy neck, and then we'll be able to build the frame around the dummy neck. And then once the dummy neck is done, we can cut the, or once the frame is done, we can cut the dummy neck out, cut that guy out, and then finally position that into the frame. Okay, so I've went ahead and cut this guy off cam. The idea is this will sit here. Now this is the imitation neck. Before we do that though, I first want to square this out, make sure that this is actually perfectly centered. Still, even though the tube has been straightened out, it could have slightly moved, so I just want to double check that it hasn't. And then I quickly just want to brace it with a couple of triangles just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. It is in fact not straight. Okay, so it's not straight. It seems to have pulled when I tack welded it. So I'm quickly going to cut one side off, and then we're going to swing it out, make sure that we can get this line perfectly straight with those two, parallel with them, and then we can re-tack that in. Okay, she is still straight. Yeah, it's perfectly straight. Okay, so I have gone ahead off camera and replaced the round bars with tubes just for additional strength, and I added a couple extra braces in as well, and also on the rear plates themselves. So basically what we have here is, this is now the up to this line. This here is the temporary neck, where we will be welding all the frame onto, or tacking them onto rather, until such a time where we have a whole complete and bolt frame. Then we will cut this guy out and we will replace it with that neck right there. Okay, so basically here we've got a plumb bob, and it is used to determine or keep the neck perfectly straight and true with the center line of these two rear plates. So this ensures that this neck is true to those two plates where the rear chassis will be bolted onto. So up next, we can get started with the tubes. We can get them positioned in, tacked in place, and, well, fun part, start building the frame. Okay, so I've temporarily mounted the template with some magnets, just to keep it there. It makes it a lot easier just to mark it. So I'm going to quickly mark this one, get this one cut, and do a test fit just to make sure that everything fits before we mark and cut the other side. Okay, so we've got the second tube tacked in at the top here. So this is all good and well now. Now what I need to do is I need to add bracing in between these two to keep them running perfectly parallel with each other. So what I've done in the meantime is I've gone and marked out this tube using the paper method. However, as I was doing this, I remembered that I actually have a 3D printer. So I went and designed up a template, if you will, that will allow me to mark out the tubings without having to use paper. So what I've done was I have designed this. It is exactly the same as this. However, this compensates for material thickness, and it also has a grub screw in that I've added. It's got a couple of lines, so the top one being the perfectly dead center line, and then I have a couple of lines every 45 degrees as well. So it's going to make it a lot easier to line these up if I were to have two notches like on this side. The tube that runs through, I'm going to need to have a notch on this side and that side. They are, however, going to have to line up perfectly, otherwise, you know, it's going to sit very wonky in the frame. So having these lines here and the one at the top is going to make it a lot easier to to line the two sides up. And here she is. I also ran out of grub screws, so I just used a little M6 leveling foot. Serves the same purpose, does the job. So I'm going to use this one and I'm going to cut the tubes for there, and I'm going to mark them out with this, and I'm going to notch them with this guy. Okay, so I have both of these in, this one and the one at the back. That one is just temporarily positioned in just to make sure that the spacing is correct all the way through and that they stay parallel with each other. But the fact that I was able to notch them with this, with the 3D printed part, made it so much easier to line the two ends up, and they are just absolutely perfect. So I'm really glad I went this route. It just works a treat. and there she is. Engine in, fitting nicely. I do need to move the engine forwards just a little bit to give me a bit more clearance for this pipe here. But other than that, I am quite pleased with how everything is sitting. So we are going to have to build a new airbox, because this airbox will definitely not fit underneath the tank. I still need to get a tank for this, so I'll have to get a tank first, and then we'll have to design and build the airbox accordingly so that it can fit in nicely. Then the biggest thing we had on this was the chain and sprocket not lining up with the rear. So we have that setting really well now. What's left is we need to add, I want to add another brace from the bottom to here, and then I also want to remake this guy here because I decided to taper it after I notched it, so I want to make a new one just to clean this up. And we'll add a couple more braces down here. And then the other one really big thing is the engine mounting. So that's going to have to be next in line with everything else. So we've got the swing arm mount there, and we also have those two mounts there. Those two I believe will be strong enough, but alternatively I also have the swing arm mount that I can mount the rear of the engine on. For the front of the engine, there are only these mounts here, and they will definitely not be strong enough. So we're going to have to use the original engine mountings here. However, on the standard VFR frame, the aluminium frame comes around this way and it bolts onto here. So we are going to have to make a mounting that can replicate the original mount but be removable. Otherwise we won't be able to get the engine in and out once we've got two side wall tubes in permanently. So I'm probably going to design something that's going to come down here and mount onto a mounting on the inside here, and then it'll come back around and then mount here somewhere, because I'm going to add another support tube down here. It's going to the back of the engine. I want to put a gusset in here and then do a mount for the frame off of that. So it'll either be here, down further, I'm not too sure yet, we'll figure it out as we go. But yeah, so that's where we are now. Need to get the engine mounted and just all the support tubes and the engine mount. So that's going to be the most crucial thing, because once we get that done, we can put the rear wheels on, lift the rear of the frame up, and then we can actually start looking at installing the neck. Okay, so we've arrived here at our frame shop. Miss Exhaust, they do all our bending for me. They've done all the previous ones, and yeah, we'll get the bending done quickly here. Okay, so we are back with our tubes, and I already have them loosely positioned in both of them, and I have to admit I am quite pleased with how everything is sitting. We've got very tight gaps in everywhere, still able to reposition everything to get it to fit absolutely perfect, but we'll just need to make a mount for the bottom here. That can be welded onto the frame so that these tubes can be bolted onto that mount, because like I said, these need to be removable, and we'll have to do something similar at the back where we're going to make a mount for the rear side of this, and then we'll obviously need to make a mount coming from the tube onto the actual engine. And we also have this guy bent here to replace this one, and yeah, so I'm gonna get started with making the mounts, getting that replaced, getting this one tacked in, and yeah, we'll start making all the mounts and everything else. So I've made a paper template for the rear engine mountings, and from that I managed to make the actual thick metal plate mounts from them. So I'm going to go get them mounted in there. Okay, so we've got the engine in and mounted now in the frame. So I'll just need to make a couple of finishing touches here. I need to gusset the tubes here, and then everything will need to be welded up. I do still need to do the oil cooler on the front here. So before I do anything else here, I just want to get an oil cooler and see where I'm going to mount it in case I do need to move anything around. But engine's in and it is sitting straight. The front and rear sprockets are also now lining up, and the rear wheels or the rear suspensions are on. I will still have to remake these wishbones, the top wishbones, because I've discovered that the mounting on them is not correct, and I suspect that there's a difference between the length of the left and the right. I don't think they were made perfectly identical, so I will just have to measure these out and just make new ones and just do the correct mountings here, because that is not up to spec. Then we have to get another shaft. We'll have to we'll need to get a new one made and have it extended all the way into here. Then we'll make a collar or a sleeve. Either I'm going to make a bracket that's going to fit in between these two, or I might remake this section here, cut this off and re-weld it. And so we'll just see what route I'm going to take on all of that. But I think that's going to be it for this video. The next video we will focus on building the springers, and yeah, so that's going to be it for this video. See you in the next one.